There is a certain kind of chess player who, when they are losing, starts knocking pieces off the board, not accidentally, deliberately. Because if there are fewer pieces on the board, the game becomes harder to read, the advantage becomes harder to sustain, and everyone, including the opponent, starts to lose track of exactly how badly things are going. I mention this because yesterday morning, the United States military confirmed that an AH-64 Apache helicopter had gone down near the Strait of Hormuz. Both crew were recovered by an unmanned surface drone, which tells you something about the kind of war this has become. And by the afternoon, 3 different official sources had offered 3 different explanations for why it happened. That is not confusion. That is chess pieces coming off the board. The way this story has been covered, as a sidebar to the ceasefire news, as a human interest angle about the drone rescue, as a talking point about crew safety, is instructive. An Apache helicopter patrolling the Strait of Hormuz was brought down. That is the first Apache lost in this conflict. Iran has, since February, shot down approximately 30 American MQ-9 Reaper drones. It has damaged or destroyed, according to the Congressional Research Service, 42 U.S. military aircraft in total, 4 F-15E Strike Eagles, 1 F-35, 7 KC-135 refueling tankers, and E-3 early warning aircraft, and 24 drones. The price tag, as of the Pentagon's last congressional testimony, is $29 billion. None of that is a footnote. It is not a footnote. The Apache is simply the most visible item on a list that most people have not been shown. So, what happened to the helicopter? Here are the 3 versions currently in circulation. Version 1, Iran shot it down, deliberately, with an Iranian drone. This is the version Trump posted on Truth Social on Tuesday afternoon, after telling reporters on the tarmac at JFK that the pilots were fine and that an incident report would follow. The United States, he wrote, quote, must, of necessity, respond to this attack. Version 2, an Iranian drone struck the helicopter, but it is not clear whether that was intentional. This is the version 2 U.S. officials told CBS News, that the Apache may have been caught in crossfire rather than targeted directly. Version 3, Iran's foreign minister said that foreign forces operating near Iranian territory are at, quote, constant risk due to their own human errors, plane accidents, or potentially being caught in crossfire, and that the best solution is for them to leave, which is a diplomatic way of saying it was an accident without saying it was an accident, while also making clear it was not entirely unwelcome. 3 versions, 1 helicopter. Welcome to the Strait of Hormuz in June 2026. Now, Trump had also told reporters at JFK, the same appearance, same tarmac, that a deal with Iran was in, quote, the final throes, that there could be a signing in 2 or 3 days, that the strait would open immediately upon signing, that this was going to be a very, very good deal. I have some sympathy for the difficulty of covering these statements accurately, because this was, depending on which tracker you consult, approximately the 37th time since the conflict began that the Trump administration has indicated a deal was imminent. 37. Which is remarkable not because the number is high, but because the number appears to have had no effect whatsoever on how seriously each subsequent announcement is treated. The deal is always 2 or 3 days away, and then it isn't, and then it is again, and the strait is still closed. And the oil tanker they fired a precision munition into last Sunday, the Marivax, Palawan flagged, crewed entirely by Indian nationals, that story quietly left the news cycle within hours. A U.S. warship disabled a civilian vessel, crewed by foreign nationals in international waters, and it was gone by the next morning. Remarkable efficiency. Not the operation, the forgetting. Here is the structural problem that no amount of Truth Social posts resolves. Trump needs Iran to believe he can control Israel. That is the entire premise of the negotiating position. If Iran is going to make concessions on its nuclear program, on the Strait, on any of it, it needs confidence that the U.S. can actually deliver Israel's compliance. And the record, as of this week, suggests the opposite. Israel struck Iranian targets on Sunday. Iran retaliated. Trump called Netanyahu and asked him not to escalate further. Netanyahu halted strikes on Iran and then continued strikes on Lebanon, which Iran had explicitly listed as a condition for the ceasefire holding. Trump told Channel 12 he warned Netanyahu he could be left alone against Iran, quote, very soon. Netanyahu's response, operationally, was to order evacuation of Tyre, one of the largest cities in southern Lebanon, including, as of Tuesday, its Christian quarter, which is the kind of decision that does not communicate a leader feeling particularly constrained. The Wall Street Journal ran the headline, "Trump struggled to rein in Netanyahu." That is either an accurate description of a failure or a polite euphemism for something more deliberate. Take your pick. Either way, it is not a description that makes the Iranian negotiating team more confident that signing anything with this administration leads anywhere useful. Iran's parliamentary speaker, Ghalibaf, said this week that Iran does not want to move forward with, quote, commitment or sloganeering, but rather seeks an engineered victory with Iranian authority and rationality. That is not bluster. That is a statement of method. And the method is relatively legible if you watch the pattern rather than the announcements. Iran has absorbed the opening strikes of Operation Epic Fury. It lost its supreme leader in the first barrage. It has had nuclear sites hit, military infrastructure degraded, ports blockaded, and it is still here, still negotiating on its own terms, still conditioning talks on behavior it is not currently seeing. The IRGC's position is not that a deal is impossible. It is that a deal is only worth having if the other side is capable of honoring it. And the evidence they are reviewing, pilots in cockpits ready to launch a massive strike, then stood down, then strikes launched anyway, then Lebanon bombed, then ceasefire, then Lebanon again, that evidence does not support confidence. Iran's foreign minister did not need to say Iran shot down the helicopter. He just said that U.S. forces near Iranian territory are at risk, and that the language of diplomacy is not the only language they speak. That is a negotiating position delivered at altitude, over open water, at roughly 150 knots. Let us just look at what 100 days of this has actually cost. 42 aircraft lost or damaged, 4 F-15Es, 1 F-35, 7 KC-135 tankers. The refueling infrastructure without which the U.S. cannot sustain operations at this range. 24 Reaper drones at roughly $30 million apiece. 2 MC-13 OJ Special Operations aircraft deliberately destroyed on the ground inside Iran because they could not get out after a rescue mission. 6 aircrew killed when a KC-135 went down over western Iraq in March. Non-hostile, mechanical, and still dead. $29 billion spent. The Strait of Hormuz still partly closed. Oil still above $4 a gallon. And the Apache that went down Monday is now number 43. Or 47, depending on which tally you're using, because the tallies themselves are being revised. Trump said he does not consider troops in the region to be in danger. He said this on Sunday. On Monday, an Apache went down. By Tuesday, he was on Truth Social promising a response. That is not a policy. That is a reaction cycle. And reaction cycles are expensive when you are the one providing the hardware. The Apache crew are safe. That matters. And it is genuinely good news. The Navy surface drone that rescued them, the first such rescue in U.S. military history apparently, is actually an impressive piece of technology, and it worked exactly as intended. So that is one system in this entire situation that performed its function cleanly and without ambiguity. I will leave you to contemplate how much that narrows the field. I am Marcus Fenn. This is Borderlines, analysis from the edge. If this kind of analysis is worth your time, subscribe now and be here from the beginning. The most important parts of this story, as usual, are the ones they are not calling a story yet.